Today we're going to review and drive around the brand new 2025 Ferrari 296 GTB, which we have in front of us here. Fairly well equipped, but really it's more a conversation about how it works, some of the controls, the knobs, the buttons, the access. We're going to walk through that, and as well I'm going to share a quick drive and show what the driving experience is all about with this vehicle. But here we have a 2025 Ferrari 296. Why don't we just take this from the top and start with the key fob. Right here we have a key fob. Naturally, you see the new style. It looks and resembles an awful lot like the badge that you find on the hood. And of course, you basically only have a couple of things on the key fob. Right here it says 296 GTB in that script, and depending on the model, that's what you're going to find different. Here you have an unlock, a lock, and if you press it again, and the hood opens. So that was a little mishap, but as to be expected. So let's take a look, and we'll work our way around this vehicle, and we'll just start, of course, with the key fob. It's a very simplistic piece, but as you'll notice, the key fob does come very similarly equipped as you're finding the badge right there on the hood. Down here you have the key teacup tray. That's good for some aero and does help provide additional downforce on this vehicle. Now down here, to open up the hood, you pretty much have to sniff around, and once it's popped loose, there's a little trigger down here. You lift this up, and lo and behold, there you have the placard, which provides all of your features, all of your options right there. Ferrari's been doing that for some time now, so all of your lists and your items are there specifically. So if you're buying a used one of these cars, then what you'll find is that's a good way to verify that you don't have aftermarket parts on the car. Here you have toolkits, you have air compressors, and in that red bag you have a spare cover. This right here is the bag for the charger, because this is a hybrid, so you're basically getting a hybrid drivetrain, and we'll show you that in a second. And the rest essentially is pretty straightforward. Plastic works. You can get this all upgraded in carbon fiber, which I didn't do, but let's close this up, shall we? A few fun facts. Of course, you got the daytime running lights down in here. This actually goes all the way in there, and that helps cool the brake ducts, or that's brake ducting towards the front. Naturally, you get the big carbon ceramic brakes, which are standard on Ferraris these days. Here's an upgraded, this is the crest, of course, that is the infamous Ferrari badge that you see so much about. The shields, they call them. Fold-away mirrors, LED strips, and of course, as we circle around, you see Ferrari, they've got their wonderful new glass back on this, nicely done, and you'll see it's very well sculpted. It's a beautiful, beautiful piece. This wing, of course, is stationary. This one here, the big flat one, that's horizontal, but in fact, there is a wing down in here that does come up with certain speeds. Down here, I got this painted updated, but here you get a center-mounted exhaust. It's a twin-turbo V6, and because of that, they come together in a single outlet in the middle. That does change depending on the model. If you get a Speciale or some of the other models, that may look different. And again, so if you want to get inside the vehicle, the first thing you do is naturally you have to unlock the door, and on top of that, now to get in, you have to push this all the way in and give it a pull and gently pull the door open. That's how you do that. Now, how do we look under the engine compartment? Let's kind of address that next. Around here, you'll notice there's a few buttons, and I'm going to share some of that with you. Here's to get out of the door, and down here is the trunk. So on top of using the key fob, you can also use this. Here is the gas filler, and here is the electrical charging port. So let's close that up as soon as we pop this, because this here now is to open up the engine compartment. So let's close that for a second. You'll notice right here, because it's a hybrid, this does allow you to charge your car right here. Pretty straightforward, pretty easy right there. We'll close that up. I just had this car on charge here recently, and we'll circle our way around this vehicle. And of course, right here, we have the gas filler. Now there's no cap to worry about. What you do have to think about if you're driving this car is not just pushing this first section, but as you're pushing the nozzle in, you'll push it a ways, and then you'll feel there's a second layer of resistance. Push through that, because there's actually two layers. It's almost a double space. And if you don't push it all the way, you might actually have a spill. You definitely don't want to spill a bunch of gasoline all over the fancy paintwork. So definitely push it in, and then push it a little bit further in again. So we'll close that up. We have a full tank of gas. And of course, I already opened up the rear engine compartment. Let's flip that up very nicely. Down here, you have coolant, you have oil checks, very easy. Right down there, you have the heart of the beast. This is a 3 liter or 2.9 liter twin turbo V6 engine. produces somewhere in that neighborhood of 660, 670 horsepower. And then you'll notice there's a gearbox, double clutch gearbox, their F1 system. And back here, there's an electric motor. You just can't quite see it. Hence all of these electric cables. Of course, you see that's part of the hybrid system. And so you have the motor on the other side of the transmission. And so what that allows you to run either gas, electric, or kind of a combination of both. A total output between these two, between the gas and the hybrid electric, gives you about 830 horsepower combined collectively when you're in the top mode. Now, it's very, very low in the center of gravity is quite good on this. It's a 3-liter V6, but that V is not a normal 90 degree like a lot of cars. It's actually 120 degree. It's very, very wide, and it's a hot V, so they have 2 turbos right up in the middle there. These aluminum shrouds you'll see right on top basically cover the turbochargers. And if you look all the way down in there, you'll see those red heads, and they talk about the red heads on the Ferraris. They still have those as well, but the turbos are up in the center of the V, providing the maximum response time and the maximum boost right back into the engine. So it's a nice little setup for maximum efficiency. We can close this up like this very gently and click and close. Of course, there you get a third brake light there and all kinds of nice detailing throughout the space here. Of course, down here you get all kinds of cameras, you get backup sensors. There's a backup camera right there, and there's more sensors here. As we cycle around, you'll notice there's more inlets. Just part of the game, of course. When you're driving these supercars, you have more cooling, more air inlets right through there on both sides, and you'll notice also there's inlets down in there. So every space, every vent on these Ferraris actually have a purpose. So as we move on back here, you'll notice there's more vents here, and of course there's more cooling capabilities right down there. Here we have a beautiful front camera, and of course naturally right there we have more sensors to keep this vehicle from, you know, hitting anything. You have a very low front, and the beauty is we have a front nose lift. Some of these cars you can equip them without the Assetto Fiorano package, of course with the optional stripe on the front. That generally does not come with nose lift because it has a different set of suspension parts. These ones here, the standard setup gives you the option for front nose lift, which is critical when you're dealing in a day-to-day vehicle for a daily driver. So it definitely helps to have that nose lift on this vehicle. So that pretty much summarizes the exterior of the vehicle. Let's go inside and see what the 296 is like inside the car, shall we? And we can do a quick scan through here, and then basically we're going to go for a short drive. As I already explained there, you know, here you have quick access to a lot of your remote disconnects. Open the door, and everything's pretty straightforward. We have a set of carbon buckets. You see that carbon on the backs of the seats, a wonderful piece. Definitely an upgrade there for this. And down below the seats, or behind the seats, that's where the battery packs are actually stored. You get some space here for your magazines or some paperwork if you like, but basically not much space behind the seats. And that pretty much closes that up. So let's open up the passenger side. First, I want to show you a couple things to note. Of course, you have all kinds of different configurations, and you know, we have carbon fiber and Alcantara throughout. Carbon fiber, of course, in that center tunnel, and parts like that are, you know, fairly well dispersed through carbon and a variety of different materials. But most importantly to note, on the 296 GTB, they do identify the model there. Of course, we have this right here. It tells you, okay, it's a Ferrari. That's pretty obvious. Down here, this is pretty standard. Ferraris come, a lot of them basically with fire extinguishers. It is an option, you pay a little extra for that, but they all have their fixed location. So if you've ever noticed, if you know 812 or any of these other cars, they'll have that fire extinguisher in a different spot. This is the location designated by the factory to install a fire extinguisher. It's pretty much bolted in there. It's not going anywhere, but there it is just in case. Hopefully that's never going to be an issue. Right here, you'll notice, and I'll show you this later, we have a secondary screen for the passenger. You can controls for your stereo, you can see the temperature, you can see the performance, tachometer, and all of these extras, that a summary of what you're seeing over on the driver's side. So this is a nice little update for the passenger. And so let's go to the driver's side, shall we? Okay, so inside the car, you'll notice the updates. You can do all these different controls. You can look at the performance. It gives you a case of the tachometer, the speed of travel. You can go back And of course, you can change the audio settings on here as well, CarPlay, which it comes included with, and navigation and settings and beyond. So that's a great little summary. Down in the middle, you do get a cup holder and a bit of a charging station, which doesn't work all that well. In my own personal opinion, it's kind of a small. My iPhone 16 Pro Max doesn't fit in there very well. Here, of course, flashers, you hope you never need that. Your window controls. And ultimately what you do need to get driving is you need to take this key fob right here, and it actually fits right into this little slot right there. That's where you leave your key fob when you're basically driving. Again, you have a small little cubby hole right here for phone or other odds and sods, your change or what have you. But that's pretty much it in the center. Ferrari is big on doing a lot of the controls all to be mounted on the steering wheel. That's pretty standard. But what you'll find is you have your signal switches right here. That's common. You can either activate it this way or activate it this way up here. And of course, in the back of the steering wheel, there are other controls down here too. There's some heat, some stereo controls, some volume controls. And you'll notice down here, you've got a variety of other things for lighting. You'll notice down here your windshield wipers, as well as the random wiper controls right there. Down here, View Max, you have this control. This is what they call the haptic and capacitive controls with these vehicles. And here you have the start button, which is flashing. We can hit that once and everything comes to life. You'll see right there, everything's now displayed, minus the beeping, of course. But you also see your eManatino, which gives you the eDrive, exclusively electric drive, takes everything from the battery. Hybrid, which will do a combination. It'll charge when it needs to, use some gas when it needs to. Otherwise, it basically will run either a combination of gas or electric. Here is performance mode, which will give you the ability to step it up. It gives more output and prioritizes engine. You really don't get electric other than you can feel it in the background where it's boosting the performance. And then here's qualify mode, which gives you everything. Full dynamic braking. It gives you full performance, full output, full braking, and everything all in one. And that's the mode you also need if, of course, down here, you'll notice on the gauge, you'll see the battery life shows 23 kilometers. See, as you drive along, that starts to go down if you're using any other mode. But if you're using qualify mode, that will start to help rejuvenate that. That will actually start to run this up, because these cars are rated to run 25 kilometers as a full charge on pure electric mode. So if you toggle it down to here, you can, in fact, drive this car as many as 25 kilometers on a full charge. Now, I don't want to necessarily test that theory out, but I have driven on pure E mode for a significant amount of time, and it works very, very well. Again, hybrid takes care of that. Performance uses everything, and qualify mode just jams everything up. Of course, there's your gas gauge, electric gauge, what you have left. The odometer, I'm sitting at 728 kilometers, but it's specifically around 500 miles or thereabouts. You have the center mounted tachometer. You can change the colors on that, and that gives you the ability to change it silver, black, red, yellow, pretty much any of the above. Of course, down here you have your regular Manatino, and you'll notice the modes change there. So we can go either to, this is wet mode, and it flashes up at the top. As we toggle back to sport mode, you'll see it flashing up there. Then we turn it to race mode, and you'll see it turns and it changes, and as well we can put it in full CT off. Now, of course, there's yet one more mode, which is pretty much not advised on the street. And in many cases, people say that it pretty much takes just about all of your protection away. So we typically like to drive this on sport mode 9 times out of 10. And of course, you have other features. So you can select your menus here. You can go through your menus with your controls right down in here. You can go into vehicle. You can do a lot of different updates in there. You can hit enter into that. And then, of course, it gives you your readouts, your pressure, tire pressures. It gives you the health of the engine and whether it's in warm-up mode or it needs a little bit more warm-up. So the first thing you do is you hit the start button. And now that gives you all of your full display. You have the heater controls right here. Everything illuminates. And we can turn the temperature down. We can turn it up. We can turn the fan off completely. And you'll notice the fan right there. The fan speed shows right there on the bottom right of the dashboard. It kind of gives you the full speed, slow speed, and we can turn that off completely if we like. Now, of course, you'll notice you have the modes, you have the tachometer, which you can change the colors, and you can do that through the menus right here. And it's a great feature because you can do a bunch of different things in here. You'll notice vehicle, you've got audio, navigation, CarPlay, and settings. And even as up in the vehicle, we select that. Has all of your previous trip history. You can back out of that, and it even gives you the G meter for when you want to know how well the car handles and takes the corners, how many G's, you know, forward, back, left, right, and overall its performance characteristics. We can back that out, and we can go back down to settings, enter into that. We have car infotainment, ADAS, which is your safety systems, and of course we can enter in the car section one more time. And then naturally here we have the ability to change brightness, doors, mirrors, unit of measure, tire pressure monitoring system, a heads-up display, lock and sound, wiper sensitivity, the time, long parking mode, and of course that does alter. Because it is a hybrid, it will tend to draw less on the batteries in storage mode. So if it knows that you're going to be parking for a serious amount of time, it does basically turn that off. So there's the ability to switch that up if you're parking for a long period of time. Of course, brightness, there's a lot of different great settings in here, and we can back that out right there. Infotainment, service, of course you can do all of that fun jazz right there, and we can back this out. And again, realistically, almost everything is available at the touch of a button. These are these haptic controls that a lot of people were bugging on, but these actually weren't that bad. I find them actually function quite well. Over here you have, you know, hands-free and phone, and of course cruise control. So a lot of the controls generally are on the steering wheel, and that's how Ferrari does it. They put everything on the steering wheel. That's kind of just the way they like to do it. And so behind that, naturally, we have the paddle shifters right down here. We have these long paddle shifters, you know, up and down, of course, and that all helps you shift the car. Now, of course, down in here, you do have reverse, which is pretty standard. You can pull that to back in, automatic, manual mode, power start, that's basically launch control, and the rest is just a false, it's just a dummy slot there. And so everything's pretty standard, but other than that, almost all the controls are mounted on the steering wheel, which is realistically where you need it to be. And that's always been sort of Ferrari's mantra here in the last so many years. They put everything at a hand's reach and make it accessible for the driver. And then over here we have a couple other features. You have your lighting, your auto lights. You have your mirror control, so you can select which mirror, and you can toggle the controls on your mirror. Parking sensors, cameras, and here most importantly you have your lift. I can hit that, but it won't let me do that right now because the car's not running. So it just tells me it's prohibited. So what we can do is let's start this up, give that a click, and then we're gonna start this up in qualify mode, shall we? Then hit that, put your foot on the brake down there, hit this one more time, and there we go. Now you'll notice there's a little blue light that basically tells you it's in warm-up mode. It means it's trying to warm up the catalytic converters and essentially telling you certain features may or may not work, like the hybrid, and it's also telling you as a warning not to drive your car excessively hard for a period of time until that dissipates. You'll hear the silence, the engine gets a little quieter, and the idles drop. You'll also notice that the idle right now is sitting about 1500 RPM. That does tend to drop here after about 15-20 seconds. You can hear it quietening down already. Just like that. See? So now you're pretty much ready to drive. And we're going to set off in sport mode. We have qualifying mode at the top. You'll notice in qualifying mode, and again, that's max attack mode. And you can drive in E mode. We'll try that, and I'll show you what that's all about here in a moment. But again, we'll leave the heater controls off just so it's quiet in the cabin here. Okay, so let's go for a drive. Right here, you'll notice P hold. That's because down here, there's a park brake. This is where you engage your park brake. It also holds it if you're in neutral. So it's a way to sort of make sure the vehicle doesn't roll down your driveway. So that will disengage as soon as we put it into drive, which we're gonna do here in a second. So let's just pull this lever. And now you'll notice it's in first gear, and we can set off. We'll put this, make sure it's in automatic mode so I don't have to necessarily pull the shifters, and it will do. I can shift, of course, and here we go. So let's head off. And you'll notice I got that center section there, that little yellow strip. That's a little upgrade, that's a little update. It's a piece of artwork that's painted onto the carbon fiber. It's actually not even as part of the steering wheel per se. But let's just, you know, let's activate the nose lift here. Okay, now we've got the nose lift up. And now that we're up, it tells us we're up, and now that we've climbed that curb, let's say we just put that back down, and you'll see front lift moving, kind of gives you that notification that it's changing. And so now, basically cruising right along, and it's pretty straightforward. It's actually a fairly comfortable car to drive. We can close the window for a second here to make sure that keep the sounds inside, so we're not really making too much noise, so we can actually hear what I'm saying. But here we are. As you can see, a lot of people comment the 296 is a very drivable, user-friendly car for every day, and so that's kind of true. It's easy to get in and easy to get out, but it's also very brisk. So one thing I notice, it tends to track very straightly. It's very, very quick steering on this vehicle. Okay, so we're neutral. Give it a pull. Now we're in first gear. We're ready to set off. We're going to leave it in automatic mode just for a little easier. And we're going to set off here. And you can hear it make some good sounds. I would say that because it's rear-wheel drive, which this car is, with 830 horsepower on tap at the rear wheels, if you do not use your traction control like down in here, you're going to be in a world of trouble. These cars obviously put down a significant amount of performance, but Ferrari has a great way of controlling and harnessing that power output, and it seems like in the first gear, second gear, it sort of holds back the performance so it doesn't get away on you. It sort of feeds it in just enough that you're not breaking loose, at least in the lower levels. Of course, the more controlled versions of the traction control, it does keep things dialed back for you a little bit, so it's not quite as hairy, scary. And then they go put these speed bumps everywhere. I'm not sure why exactly. So let's just turn the signal. Turn the signal on. And so automatic mode is pretty conservative with these cars. We're gonna signal again. You'll notice down here you can pull it back at the bottom. You can also use your thumb, so there's a couple of different options for that. Again, we're in auto mode, so we can pretty much just zoom away here once the traffic is wide open and we got room. And once this minivan gets moving, we can get takes off nicely. It's very quick, very brisk. Even with short shifting, like you often do with these cars, even with the short shifting that we can do, it actually has no problems picking up speed and getting up to speed very, very easily. Just like that. Put it in manual mode. Downshift that. Oh yeah. Oh, it sounds great. You can shift up again just for more relaxation. Get the car zooming along. Let's get through that. All right, put it in first, and we're in auto mode. So again, you can set off and it'll hold. You'll notice when you rev up, and if you let off on the gas right away in auto mode, it'll hold, assuming that you're going to continue accelerating. A lot of cars tend to do that, but that's no different here. It tends to want to give you the thought that you may actually continue accelerating without upshifting immediately. Sort of holds you, and that's clearly a nice feature that a lot of these cars are, they're incorporating in a lot of these vehicles these days. Yeah, and they're very, very peaceful drive. It has a fairly subdued exhaust until you really start winding it out, and then it starts to goes. So the beauty is you can drive this car very easily. It's easy to drive in auto mode. It pulls gears like an F1 race car driver hero. It's comfortable. It's quiet when you want it to be. When you want it to scream, it will do that as well. And with 830 horsepower on top, it's faster than just about anything out there on the market today. I mean, this side of even a Revuelto, it's pretty close. So these cars have enough performance, they handle. And the beauty is with the 296, what I find is the handling is very, very crisp, sharp as can be, like a razor's edge. Handles fast, like a razor. It also brakes on a dime. This car has every piece of performance driving attributes you could possibly imagine. Has all the latest technology. And this is in fact why I truly do believe the 296 fun driving experiences from Ferrari. Now they continue to make great cars, fast cars on paper. Now as they transition to electrification, you're gonna see more and more of that and less engine. But this is one of the last of what's a really high-strung engine that puts down strong performance numbers. The Ferrari 296, definitely one for the win.